From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Wednesday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you for starting your day with us. Our top story this Wednesday, votes are still being counted and one race is yet to be called in the Georgia runoff elections that will decide which party controls the Senate. Democrat Raphael Warnock has declared victory in one of the two U.S. Senate seats, defeating incumbent Kelly Loeffler. CBS's Deborah Alfarone has the latest on the potential shift in power.
Georgians flocked to the polls on Tuesday.
You can't complain if you don't vote.
To cast their ballot for two Senate runoff elections that could shift the balance of power in Congress.
God gave us a voice to be heard.
CBS News projects Democrat Raphael Warnock has beaten Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler thanks to strong support from black voters and young voters.
I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia.
But Loeffler didn't concede when she addressed her supporters overnight.
It's worth it for this election to last into tomorrow. We're going to make sure every vote is counted.
The other race between Republican David Perdue and Democrat Jon Ossoff is still up in the air as more votes are counted.
One vote can make all the difference.
Most of the remaining ballots come from areas that favor Democrats.
It's a razor-thin margin we've seen out there so far.
If both Democrats win, it gives President-elect Joe Biden a unified Congress, making his legislative agenda more likely to pass.
Georgia voters have never had more power than you have today.
Ossoff would become Georgia's first Jewish senator. Warnock will be its first black senator.
The improbable journey that led me to this place in this historic moment in America could only happen here.
The losing candidate can request a recount if the results are within a half percentage point. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Overnight, Warnock's lead was outside the half-point margin. Ossoff's lead was over Perdue was still within the margin. Well, now it's time to get a quick check of weather with Miller joining us here at the weather screen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I had to ask Brett today. I said, is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday. So happy hump day, everybody.
Yeah, I know. The week's kind of going by fast. It's one of those weird weeks.
Yeah, it has been weird. You know, we've had the warmth out there, warmer than normal daytime and nighttime lows. Not near seasonal, but cooler this morning when we wake up. We should be in the teens, but we're at 26 right now at the airport here in Billings. We've got winds out of the southwest at about 12 miles an hour. They were whipping yesterday, not so much the case today as that cold front that came through is farther and farther away, but we could still possibly see some gusts near 30 here in Billings today. Our high yesterday got up to 47, well above average where we should be. Our overnight low down to 26, and we're going to stay above average again today. Now, we're not going to see any rain today, but tomorrow is our best chance of seeing some rain in the afternoon and the possibility of seeing some snow as we get into tomorrow night. But as we take a look at the temperatures out there right now, we're at 35 in Livingston, 29 in Helena, Havre up there at the High Line at 40. Havre today, Victoria, could hit 50 degrees, so well above average. But as we head into the weekend, we are going to start to cool down and get near seasonal, at least for our highs. Our nighttime lows will still stay below average. But a really nice day today with lots of sunshine. We'll see those clouds starting to billow up a little bit later on this evening. We may get some snow, of course, in the higher elevations out to the west, and then all eyes are on tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night to see how much snow we may get. I'll let you know with the main forecast coming up here in just a bit.
All right, sounds good. You know, I always wake up every morning crossing my fingers for like 40-degree overnight temperatures, and I know it's nothing you've promised, but I'm still like hopeful.
I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but hey, go up to Havre today. I'll give you 50 degrees possible.
All right, it might be quite of a drive, but maybe I'll try it. Thank you so much, Miller.
Sure.
All right, back to news. The certification of a U.S. presidential election is largely a ceremonial event, and there's usually little, if any, drama when Congress meets to count Electoral College ballots. But that won't be the case today. CNN's John Lawrence has more.
President Donald Trump's term ends in 2 weeks, but he's looking for a last-minute Hail Mary.
I hope that our great Vice President comes through for us.
The Electoral College certification of President-elect Joe Biden's victory is Wednesday, and sources tell CNN Trump wants Vice President Mike Pence to derail the process.
We're standing on the abyss of the destruction of our democracy.
Despite reports from sources that Pence told Trump he didn't have the authority to block the certification, the president's team tweeted a statement Tuesday night saying the two are in total agreement that the vice president has the power to act. Some Republicans, including Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, say they'll object to Electoral College results from some states, some continuing to repeat false claims of election fraud.
Election crimes may have been committed in 6 of the sovereign states.
The expected objections will delay matters, but the end result will remain the same.
Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States of America, notwithstanding the delusional fantasies of some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle.
As the congressional face-off takes place, some Trump supporters have already gathered in the nation's capital for a March to Save America, which the president plans to attend. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Montana Senator Steve Daines and Congressman Matt Rosendale are among the lawmakers who will challenge the results. Hundreds of the president's supporters are in Washington, D.C. for a rally to support the election challenge. Last night, there was pushing and shoving between the rally crowd and police, resulting in law enforcement deploying pepper spray. Today, the president is expected to address his supporters directly as they gather outside the White House. Local officials are bracing for violence as counter-protesters are expected to be in attendance as well. Protesters also took to the streets in Wisconsin after prosecutors announced there will be no charges filed against a police officer who shot a black man in the back 7 times. The incident happened back in August. That's when police in Kenosha responded to a domestic incident and came into contact with 29-year-old Jacob Blake. An officer was captured on video shooting Blake as he opened the door to an SUV. Court documents state Blake was holding a knife during the incident. Here in Montana, Governor Greg Gianforte has taken his first action to shape Montana's response to COVID-19, focusing on getting the vaccine to vulnerable populations. He also announced plans to repeal the state's mask mandate, but not immediately. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has more.
Governor Greg Gianforte announced Tuesday that his new administration will make a shift in priorities in battling COVID. Gianforte said he plans to revise or replace a number of directives from the previous governor.
Our goal is to make these new directives and guidance very clear. They will be practical and will take into account that while we are in the middle of a public health crisis, we are also in the middle of an economic crisis.
First, Gianforte said the state would prioritize getting vaccines to people who are particularly vulnerable to COVID, those 70 or older and people with underlying conditions that put them at higher risk for complications. He estimated that 250,000 to 300,000 Montanans are in that group, and said the state will work with health departments and providers to make sure they have access.
This will not be simple. There will be challenges, but we are committed to prioritize protecting the most vulnerable in our communities next.
Gianforte also announced he plans to remove the statewide mask mandate, but only after more of the vulnerable population receives the vaccine and after the legislature approves a bill to protect businesses, schools, and other organizations from lawsuits if they make a good faith effort to protect people from COVID. He said he hopes that will be in weeks, not months.
To combat the virus, I believe providing incentives and promoting personal responsibility are more effective than imposing impractical mandates.
Gianforte didn't announce any changes Tuesday in the state directive that limits operating hours and capacity for businesses like bars and restaurants, but he said to expect an announcement in the coming days. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Governor Gianforte also announced changes to the state's COVID-19 dashboard. It will include the number of vaccines administered in Montana. Leaders say about 23,000 Montanans have already received their first dose. The U.S. could soon be giving out 1 million COVID-19 vaccines a day. That's the hope from top infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci. The slow start to vaccinations has frustrated health officials and the public alike. But Fauci says, as with any big health health program, glitches have to be worked out. The vaccine rate is already starting to speed up with around 500,000 shots a day. Fauci says with the holidays over, 1 million a day is well within reach. Montana is one of many states starting to receive some of the billions of dollars set aside to help Americans pay their rent. This money could help 40 million people who owe back rent. Reporter Alicia Nieves shows us how someone qualifies and which states may get the help first.
In the latest stimulus package, the federal government has paired the new eviction moratorium extension with $25 billion in rental assistance.
These funds can be used to pay back rent or back utility that's owed. It can also assist with forward rent and forward utility payments.
Diane Yantel is with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which advocated for this kind of funding, but explains the new rental assistance comes with very specific qualifications for renters in need.
They have to be at 80% or below area median income, and localities are required to have a preference for people who are at 50% or below area median income.
In addition to income qualifications, renters also have to prove a risk of becoming homeless without assistance and have to actively search for a rental assistance program in their area, which could vary widely depending on your state.
Early on in the pandemic, there were some funds made available to states and localities to create emergency rental assistance programs. So we've been tracking those programs. At last count, there were about 520 of them across the country. About 30% of those programs have already shut down because the resources have been depleted.
Renters in states and localities where there are existing rental assistance programs still in place, they will have access to the rent relief first, while those in parts of California, Alabama, Georgia, West Virginia, and Tennessee, where programs have closed or never existed, they will have to wait until a new program is created.
So on our website at nlihc.org, we have a map and a database of all the emergency rental assistance programs that exist now. We'll continue to track those, so that might be a good place for viewers to look. They can also call 211.
It's unclear how quickly the $25 billion will run out, but most organizations like Yantel's are almost sure it's not enough, estimating more like $100 billion could be what is needed to get all struggling renters through this pandemic. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
Now we go to Missoula, where a man accused of shooting his father 19 times claims it was in self-defense. 22-year-old Colton Merritt appeared in court yesterday and is charged with deliberate homicide. Prosecutors say Merritt called 911 on Monday to report a dead body in his house. Merritt claims his father, 57-year-old Daniel Merritt, was outside of his bedroom threatening to shoot him. Merritt told a dispatcher he wanted to make sure his father was dead and put him out of his misery. The victim had recently filed an eviction notice in court to remove Colton Merritt from his home. Bond was set at $2 million. A Utah man is facing jail time after illegally digging for treasure in the Fort Yellowstone Cemetery. 52-year-old Roderick Craythorne pleaded guilty to digging in or trafficking in relics. He went digging in the cemetery between October of 2019 and May of 2020 while searching for a treasure buried by Forrest Finn. The Park Service says Craythorne substantially damaged important historical resources. He faces up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. His sentencing is set for March 21st. The Billings Police Department is upgrading to help combat the massive spike in crime across the city. Officers will now have access to a 3D crime scene scanner and new mountain bikes to get around town. The department was given $900,000 from the CARES Act. The money helped the city pay for wages, overtime, and PPE during the pandemic, freeing up their current budget to improve safety.
Money that we're spending isn't money that was designed to buy masks and provide all the COVID stuff, but that reimbursement of all of that has allowed us to provide this money over here to where we can take advantage of that and we can increase some services. And that's what's important, and it's a one-time deal, so we're going to take advantage of it.
And in other money matters, the first full week of January is a good time to start planning your finances for the new year. Experts say there are some steps to take now to make sure you don't get a big tax bill later on. CBS's Nichelle Medina reports.
The pandemic forced millions of Americans to leave the office. In a recent survey, 53% of people working in their house said they plan to take a home office tax deduction, but they may not qualify.
Only if you're self-employed or have a home business are you allowed to deduct a home office. If you're just working at home for the convenience of your employer, like I do many days, that is not a home office deduction, but many taxpayers think it is.
Mark Stieber from Jackson Hewitt says there is also a lot of confusion over the stimulus checks.
Not taxable. You do not have to pay taxes on it.
But while stimulus checks are not taxable, unemployment benefits are. Experts say people who collected unemployment need to plan now for how that will impact their tax bill this spring.
Especially for those who received unemployment benefits and did not withhold.
CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger also says Americans who worked remotely outside their usual city or state may face a different tax rate.
What you need to do is compile the number of days throughout the year that you worked in your primary location, then the days that you worked elsewhere. So you compile those days, then you check where your primary residence is, see what the rules are.
Some workers need to prepare for a smaller paycheck. Payroll taxes that were relaxed for many employees during the pandemic are returning in 2021, which will mean less take-home pay. Nichelle Medina, CBS News, San Diego.
And now some business news. Chick-fil-A is coming to Billings West End. The city approved a zoning request from a Utah-based developer saying construction can move forward. The restaurant will be located in the parking lot of Planet Fitness on the corner of 24th Street West and Marketplace. However, there's still no timetable for when construction could begin. Thank you so much for starting your day with us here on Montana This Morning.